Breaking news. An anonymous feline infiltrates a server of toxic intellectuals, observing their brain rot until a drunken water damage error forces his permanent logout. Hello everyone, and welcome to Kokugo Taiwa. I am your host, and today we are looking at the classic masterpiece, Wagai wa Neko de aru by Natsume Soseki. To celebrate, I drew this absolutely adorable and heartwarming picture of the fluffy protagonist.
Fugo MCshi. This drawing has a completely psychotic aura. The colors are pure nightmare fuel, and the creature looks like a cursed glitch ready to unleash a massive hate raid. The fan theories will go wild for this horrific canon.
Shocked. What are you talking about? I think it captures his charming innocence perfectly. Why does everyone always say my art looks like a psychopath's mindscape?
I assure you it is terrifying, but it actually matches the deeply cynical and chronically online vibe of the real story perfectly. You accidentally captured the true lore.
That makes zero sense and honestly hurts my feelings a little bit. Let us just ignore your weird internet slang and officially start the episode right now. Let us dive right into the main plot. Our protagonist is a nameless stray kitten who wanders into the home of a teacher named Kushami. He is allowed to stay, but the house is full of eccentric oddballs.
To put this in modern tactical gaming terms, Kushami's house is basically their forward operating base, or HQ. But instead of elite operators, it is entirely populated by fake gamers who refuse to touch grass and just sit on the tatami mats.
That is a little harsh. Kushami is a respectable intellectual, even if his stomach is weak and he mostly takes naps in his study. However, his family soon faces trouble from a wealthy businessman's wife, Mrs. Kaneda.
Ah, yes, the Kaneda faction is basically a highly funded private military company. They deploy the local Raccoon Can middle schoolers as a militia to spam projectiles, essentially throwing baseball grenades over the fence to harass the HQ.
They are just annoying middle schoolers playing outside. Meanwhile, our poor kitty struggles with his own problems. He gets embarrassingly stuck trying to eat leftover New Year's mochi and completely fails to catch a single mouse in the kitchen.
Pure skill issue. The cat is supposed to be their sole reconnaissance drone, but he completely chokes in close quarters combat against a basic rat. That is a massive HP drop right there. The lore enthusiasts will absolutely lose their minds over this pathetic world building.
Well, he is just a kitten trying his best. Speaking of sad moments, he actually falls in love with a beautiful cat named Maiko next door. Tragically, she catches a cold and suddenly fades out of the story forever.
A tragic system error. Her account got permanently frozen due to a sudden malware infection. And how do the humans react? Kushami's friend Mite just spams the chat with fake lore about ordering a made-up dish called tochimembo to troll waiters. Total copium.
Excuse me, what is wrong with these grown men? A poor cat catches a terrible bug, and instead of taking her to the vet or buying medicine, they sit around making up fake food names to look smart? Do you know how expensive eating out is?
Eek! Loud and clear, MCshi. Your brutal reality check is dealing massive splash damage to my morale. I am retreating to the safe zone behind the shoji screens.
Stop wasting household funds at restaurants to harass underpaid service workers and get a real job. Anyway, the story reaches its peak when all the educated friends, including Kangetsu and Dokusen, gather in Kushami's study.
Phew. This is the most frustrating esports match I have ever spectated. The HQ is completely surrounded by the enemy PMC, and instead of establishing a tactical advantage, they are just camping in the safe area.
Exactly. They spend hours having deep, completely useless philosophical debates about the physics of suspension strings and gravity, while the Kaneda family continues to make noise outside.
That is historically accurate, I suppose, but it completely ruins my tactical headcanon. They literally sit around debating meaningless mechanics instead of defending their base. Zero survival instinct.
Yes, they just talk in circles. Finally, after the guests leave, our exhausted kitty wanders into the kitchen. He finds some leftover beer in a glass, drinks it, and stumbles around completely intoxicated.
A total violation of resource management protocols. The recon drone consumes unauthorized buffs, gets massively debuffed, and triggers a hilarious self-destruct. He falls into a large water jar, gives up struggling, and accepts his watery force logout with a bizarre final prayer. GG, well played.
Hold on a single second. I am not letting this slide. You are telling me these supposedly educated adults left half-finished glasses of expensive beer sitting on the kitchen floor?
System alert, the maternal logic bomb is obliterating the literary ambiance. The story is a masterpiece of cynical observation, not a lecture on domestic chores.
Not only is that a disgusting hygiene violation that attracts pests, but it is a massive waste of household funds. And then they leave a giant uncovered water jar right next to it? That is a textbook safety hazard.
Forced retreat. We are packing up the server. Let us move to the back room before I get banned for having a dirty room.
If you are going to host a party, wash your dishes, put away your drinks, and secure the perimeter before going to sleep. This entire tragedy could have been prevented with basic housekeeping. Welcome back, everyone, to the darkest corner of our show, the Backroom. In this segment, we peel back the curtain to examine the historical context, the hidden conspiracies, and the creator behind the work. I Am a Cat is incredibly famous in Japanese moral education classes as a pure, heartwarming tale of tolerance.
That perfectly wholesome reputation is the greatest propaganda campaign in literary history. The educational system heavily edited the server logs to hide the incredibly toxic player base. They completely bleached the narrative for the general public.
Wait, what do you mean by a propaganda campaign? My school textbooks only ever showed the cute introduction, and maybe that funny slapstick moment where he dances with his food. Are you saying the teachers are hiding the real plot from us?
They deliberately lock you in the tutorial zone so you never see the toxic endgame. The vast majority of this novel is just endless hours of cynical, highly educated snobs spamming elitist hate replies at normal society. It is the Meiji-era equivalent of a miserable internet flame war.
I see. That really changes the perspective. So instead of a cute animal observation diary, it is actually a harsh satirical look at deeply frustrated intellectuals? I suppose that would be incredibly exhausting and depressing for a middle school student to read.
A spectacular piece of hidden world building, truly. These characters completely failed the capitalist meta, so they retreat into Kushami's study. It is basically a private Discord server where they camp in the safe zone just to ratio each other with totally useless philosophical trivia.
That is certainly a very pathetic way to look at their intellectual friendships. But surely the author himself, Natsume Soseki, was a proper role model. He is one of Japan's most respected literary giants, and his face was even on the old 1,000-yen bill.
Oh, the lead developer was the most chaotic, self-destructive troll of them all. Besides suffering from massive mental debuffs after grinding too hard in the UK server, Soseki was an absolute sugar junkie who engaged in reckless daily self-neglect.
A sugar junkie? I mean, I'm sure a hard-working, brilliant author just needed a little bit of sweetness to keep his brain active. Writing those massive, culturally significant novels must take a huge amount of mental energy, right?
Historically verified, yet absolutely opposed to any basic nutritional logic, Soseki constantly complained about having a painfully weak stomach, yet he would shovel fruit jam straight out of the jar with a spoon and endlessly binge on greasy peanuts.
Excuse me, you're telling me this fully grown man whines about his chronic dyspepsia, but then scoops pure jam into his mouth like an unsupervised toddler? Do you have any idea how expensive dental bills and diabetes treatments are in the real world?
Eek! System alert! The maternal banhammer has completely shattered my smug gamer posture. I am just reading the historical patch notes about his terrible dietary choices, I swear.
And another thing, Kushami, who is obviously Soseki's own self-insert, buys towers of ridiculously expensive imported books, lines them up in his fancy tatami room, and just falls asleep. What an absolute waste of perfectly good household funds. If you have a bad stomach, go to the hospital.
Massive damage. Your brutal financial audit is completely destroying their sophisticated pseudo-intellectual armor. My HP is dropping to 0 just listening to this devastating real-world logic.
Think about his poor wife. She has to manage a struggling Meiji-era budget while her husband uses his fake stomachache as a convenient life hack to escape basic adult chores. Buying books you never read to look smart is the ultimate financial scam. Clean your room.
GG, he completely speedran the worst possible domestic ROI. He treated reality like a broken minigame, using big philosophical words to dodge his daily housekeeping quests. Truly a spectacular screw-up by the author. Meow.
Well, I suppose eccentric geniuses always have their little quirks that make their masterpieces possible. Thank you all for joining us in the Backroom, and we hope you enjoyed learning about the real Natsume Soseki.